Today, we step into the story of Goliath, the most fearsome giant in the Bible. With his massive stature, heavy armor, and formidable spear, he struck fear into the entire army of Israel for 40 days. But David, a young shepherd boy, used the power of God to defeat Goliath. This is not just about a battle. It is a lesson in faith, courage, and overcoming fear. Let's dive into this dramatic story right now. The most famous giant in history is Goliath from the Bible. He was a warrior from the Philistine camp, a heavily armored fighter. A warrior named Goliath from Gath appeared from the Philistine camp, standing over 9/9, about 2.97 meters, tall, according to 1 Samuel 17:04. When looking at these measurements, we may not fully understand because we don't use the units cubits or span as they did, but rather feet and inches. However, simply put, Goliath was a giant. If you look at the length of his arm when raised, you can imagine a giant being with strength and majesty. Not only was he enormous, but his fearsome presence also came from the armor he wore. Goliath wore a bronze helmet and a suit of armor made of overlapping metal plates, weighing more than 125 pounds, about 56 kg. He also wore bronze greaves and carried a bronze spear over his shoulder. The spear's shaft was like a woven cloth, and the spearhead weighed about 15 pounds, 6.8 kg. While a man carried a shield in front of him, 1 Samuel 17:05-7. His armor resembled chainmail, and the Philistines often wore a large cloth, similar to a tarp, with bronze rings covering from the shoulders to the knees, protecting them from sharp and dangerous weapons. In addition to his personal armor, Goliath had another soldier walking ahead of him, carrying a large shield like a person. This only added to his protection. Imagine facing such a giant in heavy armor. Everyone would be at a disadvantage in challenging him in battle. The presence and preparation of this warrior were truly terrifying. Goliath stood firm and shouted to the Israelites, saying, "Why have you come out to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and you the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight me and kill me, then we will become your servants. But if I prevail and kill him, then you shall become our servants and serve us." 1 Samuel 17:8-9. Goliath presented a common strategy in Eastern civilization, that of champion combat, a one-on-one battle. He represented the Philistines, and the one Israel chose would represent them. The result was simple. Whoever won would be victorious, and the losing side would be completely defeated. There is no need to bring all your soldiers to this battle. Just choose one warrior to face me. I am the undefeated champion. No one can defeat me. Goliath didn't just issue this challenge and leave. He persisted in challenging every day for 40 days. Each morning and evening, Goliath went out and stood in his place, challenging the Israelites. 1 Samuel 17:16. He appeared every morning and evening for over a month, displaying his strength and challenging anyone who dared to face him. Meanwhile, on the hills of Judah, near Bethlehem, a young boy named David was tending his father's sheep. David was too young to join the army, and he might not have known anything about the conflict between Israel and the Philistines at that time. David's only concern was that his 3 older brothers were serving in King Saul's army. David's father, Jesse, was worried about his 3 eldest sons. Jesse was old and might not have been able to make the journey across the hills himself, so he called David and told him to do a task for him. "David, take some roasted grain and 10 loaves of bread to your brothers and hurry to their camp. Also, take 10 pieces of cheese to their commander. See how your brothers are doing and bring back news to me." 2 Samuel 17:17-17. David got up early, left the sheep with the keeper, took the supplies, and went as his father had instructed. He arrived at the camp as the army was getting ready for battle, shouting loudly. When David reached the Israelite camp, he saw the soldiers preparing for battle and heard the battle cries. David just wanted to observe and see how things would unfold, then ran to his 3 brothers to give the supplies to the quartermaster. While talking with them, the warrior from Gath, named Goliath, appeared again and spoke his usual challenge. And David heard it. Verses 17, 22-23. Consider the situation. As David stood with his 3 brothers, he heard a loud cry from across the valley, and immediately everyone around began running and hiding in their tents. When the Israelites saw the man, they fled from him and were terrified. Romans 17:24. When David heard the cry from across the valley, he stood between his 3 brothers and witnessed the Israelite army panicking and fleeing. While everyone else was afraid, David did not let fear take control. He remembered that only faith in God could help him overcome any challenge, even in the face of a powerful enemy. Others may flee, but David believed that with God's guidance, he would triumph. Do you ever feel the strength from faith in God? If so, leave a comment. Amen. To share this strong belief with one another. Remember that David had never heard about Goliath's challenge from Gath before. He only saw a giant, armored man mocking and cursing the God of Israel. David was deeply angered by this sight. It was the 41st day that the Israelites had faced Goliath, but it was the first time David encountered this challenge. David asked those around him, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes the disgrace he has brought upon Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine who dares to defy and challenge the armies of the living God?" The Christians, who had told him about what would be done for the one who killed him. David then had a meeting with King Saul. David said to Saul, "Let no one be discouraged by this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You cannot go and fight this Philistine, for you are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied and challenged the armies of the living God." David said, "The Lord has delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, and he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic, put a bronze helmet on his head, and clothed him with a coat of armor. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around, but he was not used to them. David said to Saul, "I cannot go in these because I am not used to them." So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand approached the Philistine. Here we see David wearing his simplest shepherd attire and carrying the humblest shepherd tools, a staff ready for battle. Now we come to a significant moment. The Philistine moved closer to David with his shield-bearer in front of him. When the Philistine saw David, he despised him because he was only a young man, ruddy and handsome. The Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And he cursed David by his gods. The Philistine continued to say to David. Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield-bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." 1 Samuel 17:41-46. Consider what is happening. David, brave and resolute in front of a giant, armed with only a sling and a stone, faces off against a giant wearing armor weighing over 200 pounds. As the Philistine moved toward him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. David reached into his bag, took out a stone, and slung it at the Philistine's forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. Thus David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, without a sword in his hand. He ran over, stood on the Philistine, drew his sword and killed him, cutting off his head. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. The Philistine did not return after that. When they realized their champion was dead, they fled. The Israelites and the people of Judah surged forward with a shout and pursued the Philistines to the entrance of the valley and to the gates of Ekron. The wounded Philistines fell along the way to Shaim, to Gath, and Ekron. The Israelites returned from chasing the Philistines and plundered their camp. The Philistines did not dare return after seeing their warrior fall. They fled in panic, and the Israelites, with Judah, were filled with fervor, shouting and pursuing the enemy to the gates of Ekron. The wounded Philistines fell along the way, and Israel not only won, but also took spoils. This story reminds us that when we place our trust in the Lord, victory will come. If you find this lesson inspiring, please like and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories. Later, David took the head of the Philistine to Jerusalem. He brought the head of the Philistine to Jerusalem, but left his weapons in his tent. The story of David and Goliath is one of the most famous stories in the Bible, offering a lesson in courage, faith, and overcoming the seemingly impossible. Could Goliath have been a Nephilim? Some scholars believe that Goliath, the Gittite, a resident of Gath, belonged to a special race. Known as the Nephilim, other experts argue that Goliath might have been one of the remaining ones, as the Nephilim were destroyed in the Great Flood during Noah's time, and only Noah's family survived. The remaining giants are mentioned nearly 20 times in the Bible, such as in Deuteronomy 2:01 and 20:22, Joshua 12:04, and Deuteronomy 3:11, 13. For example, only Og, the king of Bashan, is the last of the giants, known as one of the kings. His bed was made of iron and measured 9 cubits long, which is about 12 feet, and 4 cubits wide, or 6 feet, according to the cubit measurement from the elbow to the middle finger. Therefore, we took possession of this land. At that time, I gave the territory from Aroer, which is on the edge of the Arnon Valley, along with half the Gilead region and its cities, to the Reubenites and Gadites. The rest of Gilead and all of Bashan, the kingdom of Og, I gave to half the tribe of Manasseh. That was all the land of Argob. As for Bashan, it is called the land of the giants. Many experts believe the Philistines came from a group known as the Anakim. The idea that Goliath was an elite warrior is reinforced by the fact that Gath, where he was from, was once a major center for the Anakim. Some scholars suggest that Goliath's family lineage can be traced in a way that points to a genetic pattern known as autosomal dominant inheritance. This genetic pattern could lead to conditions that cause a person to grow to an extraordinary height, such as acromegaly or gigantism. In the Bible stories, Goliath is a giant. After Goliath's legendary brother fell, we see 4 of Goliath's brothers. Once again, there was war with the Philistines at Gob. And Goliath's brothers, Anan, son of Yaroram, a Bethlehemite, killed Goliath the Gittite, who had a spear like a weaver's beam. According to 2 Samuel 21:19, these towering figures were Lami, Saph, Ishbi-Benob, and a 4th unnamed brother, who stood out for having 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. They didn't just want to prove themselves to their adversaries, the Israelites, but also to themselves. Each one carried weapons of extraordinary size and power. While their names might not be as familiar as Goliath's, their existence tells a powerful story about facing challenges, fighting to atone for mistakes, and the complex reality of living in the shadow of great accomplishments. After Goliath's legendary battle with the young David, where David's only weapon was a stone and a sling, the Philistines continued to fight the Israelites. Among the Philistine ranks was Ishbi-Benob, a powerful warrior related to Goliath. According to 2 Samuel 21:15-16, the Philistines once again waged war against Israel, and David went with his men to battle. But David began to grow weary. At that time, Ishbi-Benob, a descendant of the giants, with a spear weighing 300 shekels of bronze and new weaponry, intended to kill David. When Ishbi-Benob realized David was weakening, he thought about killing him, but he failed to reckon with God, and thus he failed that day, just like those who oppose the followers of God. Those who oppose God's followers often appear strong, intelligent, and confident in their success. However, no matter how strong or smart they are, no one can surpass the power of God at the precise moment. Just when David was in danger, Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his rescue and killed the Philistine. According to 2 Samuel 21:17, David's men swore. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue. He struck the Philistine down and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, saying, "Never again will you go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished." Abishai, the eldest son of Zeruiah, David's sister, was the brother of Joab and Asahel. In an act of loyalty and courage, Abishai led David on a daring mission into Saul's camp. They retrieved the king's spear and his water jug right from his camp. When David faced the rebellion led by his son Absalom, it was Abishai who was given command over one of the 3 main divisions of David's army. Abishai also held a prominent position as the leader of the 3 renowned warriors known as the Mighty Men, according to 2 Samuel 23:18. Abishai, the brother of Joab, son of Zeruiah, was the leader of the 30, and he used his spear to strike down 300 men, killing them, thereby establishing his reputation alongside the 3 great warriors. In this story, we need to recognize Abishai's courage and his unwavering loyalty to his leader. However, what is even more admirable is the miraculous intervention of God at the moment when David needed help the most. No matter how difficult things may get, those with high ideals and steadfast protectors will never be abandoned. Abishai remained resolute, not fleeing even when the situation seemed grim. He bravely held his ground, and at that critical moment, God sent help, even though the helper was young and less experienced. David humbly accepted this assistance. Even the bravest heroes sometimes feel weak, but those who remain steadfast and unshaken by fear will find relief. They will grow stronger and victorious after this experience. Following this event, David's followers decided that he should no longer take such risks. They easily persuaded him to avoid directly facing Absalom, yet he continued to face the Philistine army until a decision was made after narrowly escaping death. They agreed and swore that David, the light and pride of Israel, should not face such dangers anymore. The preservation of the life of someone so important to the nation like David needed to be approached with great caution and care. Abishai became a hero that day, and David continued to live on to fight in the next battle. Ishbi-Benob is a brief but powerful reminder of the ongoing struggle between the Israelites and the Philistines, as well as the dangers even great leaders like David faced on the battlefield. This is also a story of loyalty and friendship, demonstrated through Abishai's swift actions in saving his king. The Bible also mentions Saph, one of the giants from the Rephaim lineage from the Philistine city of Gath. When the swords clashed and spears flew in chaos, Saph faced Zekai the Hussite, one of David's elite warriors. Zekai was a strong warrior from David's time, from the town of Husha, and one of David's 30 mighty men, known for his remarkable individual exploits in battles, according to 1 Chronicles 11:9. These brave warriors also included Sai the Hite, Eliam the Ite, and Lami, the brother of Goliath. Lami wielded a massive spear with a thick shaft, and this spear was described as so large that it could be compared to a weaver's beam, according to 1 Chronicles 20:05. Once again, the war between the Israelites and the Philistines flared up, and Elhanan, the son of Jair, killed Lami, the brother of Goliath the Hittite, with a spear whose shaft resembled a weaver's beam. In biblical times, A weaver's beam referred to a strong round beam placed at the top of a loom to hold the warp threads in place, allowing them to remain separate and roll up as the fabric was woven. By keeping the warp threads taut and organized, the weaver could pass the weft thread back and forth between the warp threads. When the Bible mentions the weaver's beam, it actually emphasizes the thickness and sturdiness of this spear shaft rather than its length, highlighting the contrast with ordinary fragile spears that a regular person might use. In the Bible, there are exactly 4 verses that refer to the weaver's beam or spear, 2 of which concern the spear of Goliath. This story of Israel's victory over the Philistines shows that Israel could triumph over great enemies even without David's presence. These brave individuals achieved remarkable feats when David was no longer fighting giants. As the leaders of one generation give way, God ensures that new leaders will rise to guide the next generation. This battle was not just a regular confrontation, but a struggle between Lami and one who had the support of God. Although we hear little about Lami, his story affirms to the people of Israel that their true strength does not come from numbers or weapons, but from their God. The Bible only mentions one unnamed giant elsewhere, but it recounts a battle in Gath where a giant with 24 fingers, 6 on each hand and 6 on each foot, was involved. He was also a descendant of the giants. This time, the unnamed giant faced one of David's heroes, a warrior named Jonathan, the son of Shema, David's brother. As he mocked Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shema, David's brother, killed him. The descendants of the giants in Gath fell before David and his men. Though the Bible does not directly name them, this story teaches us a powerful lesson about humility and the quiet strength that even the mightiest giants cannot understand. Each battle with the giants strengthened the faith of the people of Israel. For the battle belongs to the Lord, as David declared before defeating Goliath in 1 Samuel 17:47. Thus, Goliath's brothers became part of a larger story, not only as losers, but as eternal reminders that even giants must fall when facing the will of God. The giants in the Bible are often depicted as enemies of God's people and are ultimately defeated. Their existence serves as a challenge and a test of faith for those who believe in God. Goliath's brothers represent the recurring trials we often face in life. Just as David and his warriors had to face many giants, we too must prepare to face recurring difficulties. The lesson here is one of resilience and constant vigilance, the strength of faith and courage. David's legacy is not only in what he achieved, but also in what he left behind: a people ready to win. David's victories were significant not only for him, but also for those who, through his teachings and example, learned to conquer challenges for themselves, paving the way for Solomon's future success. The success we have today benefits not only us in the present, but also brings something valuable to future generations. Genesis 6:1-4 attracts many Bible readers due to the mysterious figures, both the sons of God and the Nephilim. Genesis 6:1 tells us that when mankind began to multiply on the earth and had daughters, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves from all whom they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not contend with man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of men and had children by them. These were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him in his heart and affected all of creation. The Savior could not come. Satan was about to win. Humanity had become so corrupt that God decided to start anew with Noah and his sons, imprisoning the demons who caused that corruption, ensuring they could not repeat it. In Genesis 6:3, "Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal, their days will be 120 years. God never wanted us to remain stuck in our stubborn and rebellious ways forever. This shows how far our separation from God had gone, to the point where we couldn't just turn back as if nothing had happened. God's patience is not infinite. There will come a time when He decides enough is enough. That's why we must declare today, not some uncertain tomorrow, as the time when we choose to respond to the call of Jesus. We have no guarantee that God will seek us another day, even though His patience lasted 120 years. Interestingly, the Great Flood also occurred 120 years after this declaration. Then we read about the giants on the earth in those days, referring to the unnatural offspring of the union between the sons of God and the daughters of men. However, there were individuals with remarkable size on the earth both before and after the flood. Before the flood, humanity had fallen into extreme wickedness, with every thought of the heart being only evil. Jesus warns about the similarities between the time before the flood and the world before His return. The story of the sons of God, possibly fallen angels, and the daughters of men giving birth to the Nephilim, the giants, was a popular supernatural explanation in the early church period. Genesis 6:6 describes God's sorrow when He regretted creating mankind, reflecting His deep grief at seeing humanity fall. 3 theories explain the sons of God: fallen angels, powerful leaders of humanity, or the righteous descendants of Seth marrying into the sinful line of Cain. The fact that the sons of God married human women, leading to the appearance of the Nephilim, is a key point. The term sons of God always refers to angels in the Old Testament context, supporting this understanding. In Job 1:6, it says, "One day the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them." In Job 2:01, we find a similar phrase. "One day the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord." And in Job 38:7, "When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy." In all these instances, sons of God refers to angelic beings, including Satan. This phrase in Job suggests that Genesis 6 is talking about spirits. Genesis 6:1-2 contrasts the sons of God with mankind, suggesting that these were non-human beings. Genesis 6:1 says, "When mankind began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them." The word man in Hebrew is a general term for humanity, as in Genesis 5:1-2. The sons of God are contrasted with humans, so the sons of God must be non-human beings, supernatural entities. As a result, the sons of God must be non-human creatures. And this context suggests that the Nephilim were descendants of angels and humans. The Nephilim, or the fallen ones in Genesis 6:04, are mysterious figures, the great heroes of ancient times, famous individuals. The Bible does not specifically explain how the Nephilim came to be. It simply says, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them." Genesis 6:04. But why are the Nephilim mentioned in Genesis 6 along with the interracial marriage of the sons of God and the daughters of humans? The appearance of the Nephilim is unclear, unless it is the result of a union between supernatural beings and humans. In the book of Jude, verse 6 also understands Genesis 6:01, for ours referring to the interracial marriage between supernatural beings and humans. Jude 6 speaks of angels who did not keep their positions of authority, but abandoned their proper dwelling. If Jude is not referring to some secret event, it seems he is speaking of angels who left heaven to descend to earth, as described in Genesis 6:01, 4-4. This view supports the long-held belief that the sons of God had relations with human women, leading to the birth of the Nephilim. While this concept may seem strange today, it is no stranger than any other reality in the Bible, which is often more mysterious than any story. The universe that God created is very different from our common understanding. The sons of God saw the daughters of humans is more accurately translated as the sons of God being fallen angels, rebellious angels who turned against God, or special men possessed by demons, while the daughters of humans are human women. According to Jude 6, the angels who did not keep their positions of authority but abandoned their proper dwelling, these he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day. This verse also provides a detailed explanation of what God did with these evil angels. 1 Peter 3:19-20 tells us that Jesus declared his victory over them on the cross. After being made alive, he went and made proclamation to the imprisoned spirits, to those who were disobedient long ago, when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. In it only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. God commanded that all the earth be cleansed from this corruption, but he found one man to start over again, Noah, who found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Noah did not earn grace, he only found it. No one deserves grace, but all of us can find it. This was true in the past, and it is true for us today. But where sin increased, grace increased all the more. Romans 5:20. God called Noah to build the ark. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time. This story not only highlights Noah's righteous life, but also shows that he remained pure, unaffected by the wicked schemes of Satan, who sought to introduce evil influences into the human lineage. We can understand that Noah had a character rooted in faith because immediately after the flood ended and he stepped out of the ark, the first thing he did was offer a sacrifice. Genesis 8:20. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These 3 sons of Noah played a significant role in the story, and God used them to repopulate humanity. Rather than destroying all of mankind, God preserved a remnant. It seems that after the flood, the fallen angels continued to sin, but this time the sin was on a much smaller scale than before the flood. When the Israelites returned to Moses after exploring the land of Canaan, they brought back news of what they had seen. They reported that they had seen giants, though it is likely that these spies saw very tall people in Canaan and, out of fear, mistakenly believed them to be Nephilim. It is possible that after the flood, the fallen ones once again took human wives, producing more Nephilim. It is also possible that some characteristics of the Nephilim were passed down through one of Noah's daughters-in-law. Either way, the giants found in Canaan were defeated by the Israelites during their conquest, and this was not the only time the Israelites defeated these giants. They did so later in their history as well. Thus, the story of Goliath and his brothers ends here. Through this video, we hope you have gained a deeper understanding of the mysterious events in the Bible, including the giant warriors, with Goliath being one of the most notable figures. This is not just a story of strength and confrontation, but also a lesson in faith, courage, and the challenges we may face in life. These figures are not just shadows in history, but mirrors reflecting resilience, love, and persistence. Perhaps in each of our lives, we too must face our own Goliaths, enormous challenges that make us feel small and weak. Have you ever faced such a challenge? How did you overcome it? Share your thoughts in the comments below this video, as your story could be an inspiration to others. If you found this story meaningful and would like to explore more valuable lessons from the Bible, don't forget to like, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next videos. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you soon in the next inspiring and meaningful stories.